And you start proposing legislation that, like I said, is connected to you personally. The American Teach Act,
yes,
which would basically make a minimum amount of salary for public school teachers at $60,000 a year, which is fantastic. Teachers are grossly underpaid. I think what's at stake if we don't do that? If we don't start paying our teachers fairly?
So right now we have people believing lies because of Trump, because of social media, because of nonsense, and the less educated our kids are, the more vulnerable they are to lies and misinformation.
Yep.
So we have a teacher shortage right now. We had one before the pandemic. It's gotten worse. We need about 300,000 teachers over the next 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And if we don't get them, you're going to see class sizes balloon, you're going to see lower quality teachers, and you're going to see a lack of critical thinking, and you're going to see a larger impact on misinformation on the minds of our kids. And when you don't have an educated society, you are more vulnerable to the destruction of democracy and fascism rising, which is what we're seeing from DeSantis, Trump, and others.
Absolutely.
So that's what's at stake. Like everything we hold dear is at stake. And so this bill, I mean, you'll be surprised that there's some states in the country where teachers have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to earn enough money to pay their bills. There are many states where teachers aren't in unions, they can't collectively bargain. Mm-hmm. So this creates a floor of $60,000 tied to inflation, which will grow over time.
No, it's good. I mean, look, you talked about it before. I mean, it's like cost of living is getting higher. We need to start investing in Americans. And you spearheaded this letter signed by 50 Democrats, including Senator Warren, for President Biden to act on setting rent restrictions. Last month, he released his blueprint for a renter's bill of rights, and he new actions to protect tenants, make renting more affordable, improve fairness in housing. And even today, the Federal Housing Administration, they reset their mortgage loan, right? They lowered it, which could possibly send, on average, $800 a year for like almost 1 million families. Huge. Is President Biden doing enough, like being the leader that we need right now to kind of tackle this rent crisis?
No, he's not, and neither is the Senate, and neither are most members of the House. I mean, the bottom line is we need to build more housing.
Yeah.
And no one should be unhoused in our country.
No.
Period. Like, that's the bottom line. And no one should pay more than 20% of their salary towards housing.
Yeah.
And so that's the bottom line. Right now, housing is a part of the market. So now everything is market rate. So you'll have people paying upwards of 50% of their salary towards housing. You can't live. You can't afford housing, you can't afford groceries, you can't afford, if you're older, medication if you're a senior, you can't afford childcare if you're younger, you can't afford, I mean, it's just, there's an inequality and affordability crisis in our country, and it's not just based on race, it's across race and across racial groups. You can't have a country where you have people who are worth $200 billion while you have 1 in 5 children going to bed hungry. Mm-hmm. Like you can't, this democracy is not going to work with that system in place.
Right.
That's what we currently have. So they're not doing enough, but also the private sector aren't doing enough, and we as legislators need to hold the private sector accountable towards doing more.
Right, absolutely. But if those billionaires can't afford their private islands, then where are they going to fly their jets to?
That's right. Or take vacations out of space.
Oh, right. Honestly, just send them to space. That'd be fun. Your Emergency Price Stabilization Act and your Heat and Cooling Relief Act seem like very reasonable bills. You know, we're dealing with inflation, rising energy costs. I don't know. I think we were past them. But it's funny. I don't think that you're getting the bipartisan support, I would imagine. Can you explain what those bills would do to actually help families?
We're not getting even enough support within the Democratic Party, which is insane. So the Heating and Cooling Relief Act would ensure that you are not paying more than 3% of your salary towards utilities. Mm-hmm. And so right now, again, people are pretty much making rent and mortgage payments towards utilities alone. And again, it's an affordability issue, and Con Ed has continued to raise prices so that they can make profits while people are continuing to struggle. So they've pretty much, we sent people stimulus checks to help them survive COVID, and then companies across the board, not just utilities, but grocery companies, other companies, they raised prices to take that money out of the pockets of people. And that's the problem with our, what I call plantation capitalist system. Mm-hmm. It's toxic. And so it's designed in a way where CEOs and corporations make all the money, and labor, which does the work to create the wealth, gets very little of it. And that's what needs to change. And when I talk about these things, I'm criticized for being, a socialist, a communist, and all these things. And like you said, this is common sense that the majority of the American people support.
Well, I mean, so they love socialism when it's bailing out big banks. Or
Socialism for the rich.
Yeah, of course. But also, I think it's about prioritizing where we put our money, right? I think a lot of your bills are investing in American people, and stay with me for a second. You were one of 51 Democrats, House Democrats, who voted against the defense budget bill. And the Pentagon got $860 billion. That was $45 billion that even President Biden wanted to give them.
That's right.
But with $45 billion a year, we could end hunger in America, right? So you voted against it. Both Democrats and Republicans are at the mercy of this spiraling, it's like it's a James Cameron Avatar movie. It's like they get any budget, depending on anything they want. What's at stake if we don't correct course and just take some of that money away, invest it, I don't know, in clean water, education?
Yeah, so the federal government is a little different than state government.
But
the federal government can spend money into existence. States and cities can't do that. States and cities have to balance budgets.
Right.
The federal government can say, oh, Ukraine, you need 100 billion, we got you, here's 100 billion. And that money wasn't taken from anywhere. It was created out of thin air.
Yeah.
So the question is, why can't we create money out of thin air to end hunger?
Yeah.
Why can't we create money out of thin air to provide universal health care?
Which would make our country safer.
Why can't we create money out of thin air to create housing for everyone? All these things would make our country safer and help the economy. Because when people are not freaking stressed and dying and unhoused, they can actually work and contribute to the economy.
They want to go to dinner.
Yeah, so they'll spend money.
Yes.
Like you invest in them, they're going to spend money. The true health of the economy is cash flow.
Yeah.
So the federal government said decades ago, you know what, let's put a man on the moon. They moved heaven and earth and billions of dollars, tens of billions to get a man onto the moon. Yeah. So what's our moonshot moment right now is the question, right? And I think it's dealing with the issue of climate change, it's housing, it's healthcare, it's inequality, it's all of the issues that will uplift the entire country and take us to a whole nother level.
Yes, and I agree. Kason mentioned this.